Would you like it? So it's been 11 hours of playing.
Welcome, dear readers, to Cover My Ass, where baffling books are reviewed but not read by yours truly. My name's Kaki.
And I'm Kay, and remember, we only judge a book by its cover.
So, if you find yourself lost and not quite sure what's going on, don't worry. That's kind of par for the course, and it's quite the same for us as well. Certainly, now that Kay, we find ourselves amid the genuinely towering stacks of your library,
The first floor.
Yeah, you took me up to the first floor, and as usual, when you introduced me to something new in your wondrous library, where I've been your guest for 90 weeks, I jump in with my usual upbeat hubris.
Careless wreck of abandon.
Yes, exactly. It has not served me well this time.
Oh, dear, what's happened?
Well, you may notice that we're in kind of a sort of cramped environment. So
I was wondering what had happened to the spaciousness of the library.
Yeah, so did I. I mean, you told me to get the books in order, and I can handle the Dewey Imperial system pretty well, but the runes are quite different here on the first level, and I think they sort of tricked me because they formed a sort of octagon of bookcases around me in which I'm trapped.
Yeah, were you trying to pile them up and decide for yourself that certain books really belonged next to each other just because the runes on the cover said so?
Well, yes, that's the Dewey, what's the whole system's for, isn't it?
Right, yes, but sometimes you have to be a little bit careful about it and not actually put them right next to each other. You have to leave some gaps on the shelves. One, it looked more attractive, and secondly, it's easier to browse, and also some of the books really don't like each other, and if you just
So it's like a wedding.
Yes, pretty much so.
When you're planning whom to invite and where to seat them at the table, and sometimes you have to leave. Yes,
that's basically when you're trying to put a book on the shelf, and you kind of feel like that. I told you about that last week. The
weird sort of anti-magnetism.
Exactly, the magnet effect. You put it on the next shelf. Start a new shelf. There'll always be room there.
All right.
And if you don't do that, then you get this, where they kind of gang up on you and.
Okay, well, so at least, hey, in the plus column, I've created unity.
Right.
Among the books.
Yes.
Right?
You've unified them against a common cause.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately that the common cause is you, but...
Well,
I mean,
hey,
someone's
got to... I'm still going to take credit for I consider it a form of success.
Oh, very, very well done. It has organized them very nicely. I mean... Not really
I wouldn't
in any
know.
meaningful way. But,
yeah, we can only see the sides of the bookcases.
I mean, it's geometrically organized, but that's about it.
I mean, it's an octagon, so what's that? Isn't American fantasy pretend wrestling done in octagons?
You're thinking of mixed martial arts.
Ooh.
That's done in octagons, yeah.
Damn.
So maybe they took some cues from the fighting pit that you had on the ground floor, and they decided to recreate that. The fact that we are now both in it seems to suggest that maybe they want a showdown.
Yeah, no, this actually has some creepier implications. Have the books on level 1 been watching all of my various shenanigans on the ground floor?
They're probably aware of what's been going on at a very base level.
This is such bad news, though. So this means that none of my usual tricks are going to work on them, and I'm going to have to come up with new stuff. Oh, God, new stuff.
Sorry, what kind of tricks have you been applying on the books?
My historical attempts to sort of befriend and wrangle the books by, and stacking them and building, little fortresses and then entire villages with libraries out of the book. So they're just not going to let me do that here, probably.
I think the thing is to get them on your side rather than try to force them into uniting against you.
Oh, no, that's an interesting thought.
Yeah, try to just basically make friends with them and
divide and conquer.
Well, yes, but
so
also...
you mean identify some of these books as enemies and make sure that I, like a sort of demagogue, rile up the rest of the populace against them. I mean, 75% of books is fine, right?
Maybe try it with pamphlets first, not with books.
Yeah, that's how they start, the demagogues. Yeah. Well, so I'll distribute some pamphlets. I'll just slip them. Yeah, I'll do it with what do you call those bookmarks? Those sort of but heavily politicized with a sharp libertarian edge, excluding some of these. No, okay, I get you. That's
chick tracks. Why don't you start with chick tracks?
Oh dear. And for the readers at home who don't know what that is, oh bless you, what a blessed life you lead.
Yeah, don't look it up.
So, what do we have in store for our readers this week?
Yes. This week's book is by Barbara Hambly, The Dark Hand of Magic.
Yes, and for the readers at home, if you look down at your podcasting device, you should be seeing the cover of today's book. Otherwise, you can check out the show notes for an image and a link. You can find us on the web at covermyasscast.com and on Twitter at covermyasscast, where you'll find episode 90, The Dark Hand of Magic by Barbara Hambly. She has a lovely name.
Barbara, I mean, what's wrong with Barbara Hambly? Hambly.
No, I like it. Barbara, it's even got a B in it. It's sort of a kindly teacher name of a
right.
favorite.
Yes, I mean Hambly sounds
Barbara
a bit like
Hambly.
Hamlet or something like that. And
Yeah.
it's you'd expect her to live in Dorset somewhere, and
Yes, and for her surname to historically have been a euphemism for something unmentionable.
a Hambly.
Oh yeah, she's got a little Hambly. That one.
Oh, she's on the Hambly again.
And the cover is, I mean, it's got lovely, soft, mellow colours.
Well, you get that. It's like it's doing the firelight lit scene.
Yeah.
And they're probably in a gazebo, I would reckon.
Yes. There's the sort of arch composition that we're looking through, and there's, I mean, it's a bit windswept. You can see the candles are being blown out
I mean,
sideways.
yes, and you can see from the fires in the background that there's definitely a bit of wind going on.
Yes, the green flames spewing from a mountaintop castle are indeed being whipped in the same direction, while two figures sit in a circle of. No, I'm just noticing candles and really tiny skulls, upsettingly small skulls.
Oh, yes, that is a bit weird, isn't it?
And like a brazier or like a fire pit off to the side.
Yeah, and a colourful blanket, I suppose.
I
that
was
it
just
is.
noticed that. Like, what's it called? A jalapy? No, a tilapi? No.
Slappy's a fish.
Oh, what's the Meso in Southern American like dress with serape? That's the one.
Oh, okay. I had never heard that word before.
Serape. It's a sort of blanket like carpet that with a hole in the head, sort of like a
poncho.
Sort of like a poncho, yeah, but then woven. I happen to know that from the Three Caballeros, the Disney production with
yes.
three happy chappies with snappy serapes.
Oh, okay.
You'll find us beneath our sombreros.
It's like I always confuse the Three Caballeros with that other movie that Steve...
The Three Amigos.
The Three Amigos. I always get those two mixed up.
With Steve Martin and Martin Short and... Oh, who was the third one? Oh, good, great. Oh, Chevy Chase, obviously.
Ah, yes.
Also with great songs. We are the Three Amigos.
So, yes, I always confuse those two movies.
I think that's entirely appropriate, and I'd like to imagine that they're basically the same continuity, just at some point, like...
Oh, yes. Right.
Well, then which one would... Hold on, which one would be Donald? Because you've got Donald and...
Steve Martin, obviously.
Steve Martin...
Well...
Yes. And then Panchito would be Chevy. He's the loud one.
Yes.
And that leaves sweet little dapper Martin Short as José Carioca.
I mean, yes.
I can sort of imagine him with a little hat and an umbrella. Oh,
yeah, the little parrot, the little green parrot. He was always fine. It was always like they depicted as a little bit of a hobo or a poor guy in any cartoons that later came in long after.
Yeah, I think that's so.
He was a bit of a hustler and a.
Yeah, that's so weird because he was literally named after his Brazilian voice actor José. Well, they knew him as Zé. That was his fame name, and yeah, he's like a dapper gent,
a little bit of a playboy, as I was kind of see him. You know,
well,
one of
he's
those Brazilian Copacabana hustler type. Because I can see that, but
yes, he's an itinerant gentleman.
Oh, is that the word for it? So yes, we see the. I think there's a ceremony. I mean, there's a bowl and a book, and they're definitely performing a ceremony, as we'll learn during the book.
Yes, the one-eyed, leather-vested, muscly-armed, bemulleted gentleman is holding a book up against his knee.
Don't you think he looks a bit like Sean Connery?
He does. It looks like a mix of Sean Connery and MacGyver.
Oh, really?
Except oilier.
Well, he's got a mullet, but other than that.
I mean, what do you mean other than that? What does MacGyver has a mullet, and other than that, he has nothing, which is why he always has to...
He's got a pocket knife.
No, because he's just got the mullet, and the mullet doesn't do anything.
Ah, yes, and then there's the young lady in the background with the... What are those shoulder pads called? I think it's a fencer's thing.
That's a good point. I wanted to say epaulet, but would you defend your sword arm like that? Because doesn't it, like... affect your mobility, certainly if you want to like raise your arm.
That's the shoulder that's facing your opponent, so that's the one you need to have armored.
That makes complete sense.
Yeah.
The one facing the pointy bit is the one that should be armored. Yeah, and she's got a green waistcoat, which I really like, and a white shirt underneath.
With rolled up sleeves, because back in the day they didn't tailor sleeves to length.
Is that it?
Basically, sleeves were too long, and you had like little binders around the arm.
What was the advantage of having too long sleeves?
Because it was one size fits all.
Plus, blousing was considered cool before fucking Beau Brummel decided that men's clothing should be boring forever.
Yes, it's a shame. And calf-high leather boots, and probably leather pants, I suppose. I mean, it is adventurous after all, so you kind of have to go that way.
Yeah, but then they're clearly like doe skin. I mean, these are lovely, lovely soft boots.
Buttery soft leather.
I think his deep V leather waistcoat, belted, I note, which is an odd move for a waistcoat.
Right, yeah, but well, the belt is for holding up his dagger that's hanging off the... Which is always, that's always struck me as a really weird way to carry a weapon.
Yeah, no, exactly. Dangling off a beaded chain off your hip. It's hanging at thigh height, so when he's riding, it must just jab all over the place.
Right. Yeah, but so exciting cover.
There's as we like to say, there's a lot going on,
and also especially the extremely dubious look on the young woman's face. It's just like,
while she is holding an unsheathed sword.
Yeah, as well. It's like when someone's committing harakiri. Or seppuku, I believe I should call it. Harakiri is not the correct.
No, there are two different forms of the same principle. Like it's ritual suicide, whereby the state of one's corpse, it can be determined whether you performed the ritual correctly, and thereby establish that through your sacrifice you've retained honor on behalf of your family. And the difference between seppuku and harakiri is whether the cut is up and in or side to side, and guts come out.
I mean, that was the one way to go, and the other one, the other version is when they really didn't trust the person involved, then we'd just give them a fake knife, and the moment he leaned forward to grab it up, the guy with the sword would still, and it would still consider to be like proper form,
yeah, that seems like a diplomatic execution with benefits for the remaining family.
Of course, the real skill came in the guy holding the sword, because the idea was to do a proper severing of the head.
What a cool podcast this is becoming, by the way. I'm noticing that there's a certain. I mean, is it maybe a function that we're stuck in the MMA octagon?
Ooh, I hope not. And I did not bring any katanas.
Actually, isn't that kind of what she's holding?
A katana? No, I think it's just more like a rapier.
Is that a rapier? I mean, it's got a cutting blade.
Yeah, well, back in the day, rapiers were a little bit like, it might be a saber. I mean, it definitely has a crossguard in a way a katana doesn't. Also a pommel, which a katana also doesn't.
Okay, welcome to Kaki and Kay talk about fantasy swords they can barely see on a book whose cover has absolutely captivated them. So the book opens with the introduction of these two characters. On the left, we have the person whom we know as the apprentice in this story, named Fanny.
Fanny, yes. And the other man on the cover is the old-time hero, as you can see by his grizzled face.
Yeah.
Man known by the name of Samwise Gamgee.
Yes. Now, I thought it was peculiar that he was named so even before he lost his eye, but...
Or maybe his dad also didn't have an eye, and he was just named after his father.
Yeah, maybe he inherited the Gankai from his father, certainly. It came from the
we learn later in the story that way how he lost that eye, but let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yes, because these are apprentice and mentor, these are adventurer and sidekick in the midst of an end-of-career ceremony.
Right, yes. What we are seeing is basically the ceremony in which the dark hand of magic is being passed on from master to apprentice.
Whoa, okay, this is one of those remarkable books where the title actually plays a role in the story. Have you noticed how out of 90 books that we've done, very rarely does the title actually matter for anything that happens in the story?
Well, a lot of times the title is a bit weird anyway, so...
Yeah, right?
Besides, we review books based on the cover, not on the title.
Yes, true. But so, yes, The Dark Hand of Magic.
Right, which is also known as The Gift That Keeps on Giving.
Yes, that is what it's known as. And
because it is passed on from master to student.
Oh, yes. And also through the oral tradition, I understand.
It can occur, yes.
From time to time. Yeah, it's not the usual way of passing it on. No, the usual way is this ritual of transference that they're doing with the miniature skulls, and because it's a passing of the torch, so to speak, from master to student.
The torch being quite a literal thing here, because as you can see, the burning castle in the background, that's the plague burn. It's the castle overviewing the twin towns of Sodom and Gonorrhea.
Yes. Yes, that's right.
And things have gotten a little bit out of the hand of magic there, and they've basically used the torch to set the castle on fire.
To cleanse.
You can see the green flames burning off the plague, which has been passing through the towns.
Yeah, now this is quite radical medieval fantasy science because understanding that pathogens propagate and can be cleansed through essentially destruction by creating a firewall,
and of course sacrifice being used to fuel the ritual.
We are
burning the souls of the diseased, and now this is like generating the power that is being channeled through the symbolic little skulls and candles, so that the hand of magic can be passed on the dark hand of magic, I should say.
Yes, that's certainly how Fanny, the apprentice, has come to think of it. I mean, she has long wondered about Samwise Gankai's extraordinary luck and where it comes from, and he's finally at this point confided in her that it's the dark hand of magic, which now that his career is finally complete and she has proven herself a worthy apprentice, he can now pass on to her through this weird ritual of physical contact and sacrifice. So at this point, we flash back to how they first met. Yeah, we flash back to the simple town of Runny Bottom, sitting an idyllic little town by a river. It's got a little school. Literacy is remarkably high for a medieval fantasy town.
Yes, they've got a unified currency.
Yeah,
what seems to be running water, or at least no problems regarding that, or sanitation. It's like the typical
running water. Yes, sanitation not so much. It is called Runny Bottom.
Right. Yeah. Running water down the town square, and if your roof isn't thatched properly down the walls.
Yes. But, so certain forms of sanitation are not really, really well advanced, but in the meantime, they do have some pretty advanced, reproductive health science. They even have a little university dedicated to reproductive health. And in fact, Fanny's mother, who specializes in reproductive health for people with vaginas and particularly with wombs, that's her specialty.
Oh yeah,
she's
often go together, but.
Well, she's a uterine expert. She's known as a history professor. Yes, and as we discover more about this idyllic little town, we realize that.
No, sorry, just catching up with history.
There you go.
Yes,
that this idyllic little town, it's lacking some of the usual menfolk. They're not very well represented. They don't partake.
There's some boys there, almost all of them prepubescent. So.
Yes, because this town is beset by a local succubus. Who drains the town of its menfolk. The young men who pass pubescence are unable to withstand the siren song and
wander off.
Yeah, despite the efforts of their sisters and mothers to protect them. And so, you can understand why in a town with so very, very few men, and the men that do wander in are forever changed and drained by the succubus's magic. There is a lot of call to improve the reproductive health of this town and assist with unmanned parenthood.
Yes.
It's a tricky science, that one.
Well, I mean, how do we call it again over here? The bommoeder?
Yes, the
intentionally unwed mothers.
If we make that intentionally unwed damsels, then we get IUD, which is also a...
Yeah, that would work.
Yeah. So, no, yes, that's right.
Yes, it's a town full of intentionally unwed damsels.
Yes. And Fanny's mother is an intentionally unwed dame, but same
that's
principle.
like that you make the transition sooner or later.
But they realize that their numbers are dwindling. I mean, she just has the one daughter, and many mothers or many women are daughterless, and so they save the town profits, because it is flourishing, for an entire year to hire the services of the greatest adventurer in the lands, Samwise Gankai.
Yes, and he just struts into town with his dashing mustache.
Spectacular,
He has a mustache.
He definitely has a mustache.
And his mullet.
And his famous his sword, which has a sort of Spanish-French name. I had the feeling like it was a sword of great renown. Maybe that it was a little cheeky in Spanish, like for what it's its own sort of catchphrase. Yeah. The pork sword.
Pork, porque.
Porque maybe. But
what is it for? It's a sword. It's for porqueing.
Yeah, exactly. So, and he's summoned to deal with the succubus and to help with the fertility problem of this town. And young Fanny cannot really concentrate on her studies with such an exotic individual in the town.
I mean, a manfolk of that age.
And while all the women in town are captivated by him, and I mean, they appreciate that he goes around the town and he personally interviews everyone in a one-on-one, a tete-a-tete.
Ah, yes.
To see just how the succubus infestation has affected them all.
It seems a bit suspicious, but I kind of figure what's going on.
But
yeah.
Fanny is an innocent maiden. She's just instead of studying her histories, she's
never mind.
She's fashioned a little Yeah, she's fashioned a little modern pork mace, I mean, a sort of meat club out of that she swings around, that she practices with a lot.
Practice makes perfect.
So several months into the arrival of Samwise Gamgee, we flash forward to a rather mournful procession, the burial of Samwise's previous apprentice.
Right, a fine young man who was known as Captain Krusty, but who did not manage to resist the lure of the succubus.
No, he has unfortunately lost his fabled apprentice to the succubus. But in the plus column, some 9 months into this campaign, a lot of women in the neighborhood are actually having babies again.
Yeah, funny that. I wonder how that, where that amount of time comes from. But
his fabled pork sword must have defeated the succubus, and his one-on-one interviews with all the intentionally unwed damsels and dames clearly overcame the curse they were under.
So, little old Fanny moves on out with Samwise Gamgee on a life of adventure. She apprentices to her after Krusty was unfortunately buried, and there's now an opening in the ranks of apprenticesness.
Yes, apprenticesness. The ranks of apprenticesness. That's right. That's I know Barbara Hambly, she had a real knack for neologisms.
And old Gamgee decides that he's going to take on Fanny and teach her the arts of the
show her the ropes
of the the porquet sword, I suppose.
Yes, that's right, the pork sword.
Samwise and Fanny set off for a life of adventuring.
Yes.
And it moves ahead to a few years later when they are on a quest for the Staff of Power.
Yes, a mystical rod of known to be of just exquisite capacity.
Right. It's also a little bit, dangerous.
Oh, yeah. Handle with care.
It has a reputation of being a little bit infectious here and there.
It's a font of many dangers.
And they are in some swamp.
Dripping with power.
Yeah, they are. And they are in some swamp of the other fighting poisonous beavers.
Yeah, it's awfully swampy there.
It is very much so.
Leather was a bad choice when you go into the swamp.
Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, cows don't seem to soak and rot, and they're made out of leather.
Yeah. We've been over this before. They're not made out of leather. They have skin, which replenishes. They have, cells still practicing mitosis. So maybe they were enjoying the swampy circumstances.
Well, so they are fighting
the
poisonous beavers on their quest for the temple which holds the Staff of Power.
Yes.
It's like typical adventure story at this point, where they're beating their way down through the bush, coming in.
Yes, until they get to the secret garden.
Yes, where the Staff of Power is hidden.
Yes.
There's a brief interlude where they have to deal with an infestation of crotch crickets.
Yes, that's right. But he quickly uses a spell. Some of the first examples of magic that he's shown young Fanny, and he hands her his porquet sword, and she says, "Are you going to approach him? Approach these crotch crickets entirely unarmed?" Yeah. And he sort of drives his hand, and he puts his hands wide apart, and he brings them together in a massive noise called the clap.
Yes.
And that takes care of that.
That's a very good way to deal with the crotch crickets. And,
Yeah. And then he douses both himself and Fanny. He's brought his own sort of semi-mystical alchemical wards, and he douses them both in runic lice. Mm-hmm. Which keeps away the crotch crickets.
Yeah, it works. So yes, back in the Temple of the Staff of Power, they have to finish the largest beaver they've seen so far. And in this scene is where he actually loses his eye. It's like when he gets a squirt in the eye from one of the poisonous beavers.
Yes, I think it was while he was trying to stuff it. He wanted one stuffed beaver,
and it was Unfortunately, the goop got in his eye, and that's basically what cost him his eye. But quick acting by Fanny with her, let's call it a rapier or saber, whatever. Quick acting by Fanny managed to take care of the lost poisonous beaver, thereby saving not his eye, but at least the life of her master.
Yeah, and he's he's not tremendously grateful to her. He does that thing where he compliments someone on saving them by saying, yes, you did exactly as I trained you, and yes, you saved me the effort of having to cut my own eye out to stem the infection from reaching my brains.
Oh, it's like, I guess it's more like a bit like a poisonous cobra when you get spat in the eye and then it kind of burns out whatever it is.
Yeah, that's a horrible idea.
Yeah.
So it was at this point that I was starting to think that maybe, what we see on the cover, how tightly she's clutching the hilt of that sword, that maybe some of the shine has rubbed off the apple, and she's not as entranced with him as she was when she ran away with him. Certainly, when we get to the next scene, where a priest named Chlamydius hires.
Yes.
Well, they have fancy names, hires Samwise and Fanny to acquire a treasure, a mystical treasure that has been lost for many centuries, and hiring these renowned adventurers to venture into the local labyrinth that contains this treasure, specifically the Fallopian Maze.
Ah, yes, it's very convoluted.
It's very convoluted. Yes, exactly. Like it's very narrow as well, and that's sort of wend their way
these
through
little,
there.
weird little pulsing sensations going through the walls.
Soon enough, they find themselves completely lost. But hey, Fanny's from Running Bottom, and she's a bit of a history buff, so she recognizes some of the location here from her history books.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's completely lost, but it's thanks to Fanny that he's able to find the little man in the boat in the middle of the. So it's so difficult to find, isn't it?
It is weird. Like, guys, like, they like to go out fishing, so, you never know where the little man in the boat is.
Yeah. I mean, he'd be completely hopeless. He'd heard about this treasure for many, many years, never was able to find it.
The Fallopian Maze, it'd be over there.
Yeah, the little man in the boat helps him find the treasure, the sacred walnut.
The sacred walnut, which is like, put a little bit of pressure on it and it'll release its...
Yes, it's absolutely magical, and you can understand why a priest would want to know all about the sacred walnut.
Especially how to find them.
Yeah, exactly. So now that the secret is revealed and the heroes return triumphant, crashing back into Chlamydius' temple on the tides of the Red Sea.
That's always... yes, I don't know where that suddenly came from, but I guess it must have been that time of the month.
I've got to say, I was very upset with Samwise, because that's what he says to Fanny when she's upset with him for taking credit for her successful navigation. Like,
yes.
this was her win.
It
but
was.
He won't let her have it. He's
like, I'm the adventurer, it goes to me. It's like it's the boss taking credit from what's going on.
Exactly, and he just accuses her that it's her time of the month, and that's why she's grumpy. And I can sort of understand why at the end of that scene, we see her in the tavern with a local group of balladeers, a minstrel band of really sort of tough, spiky-haired maidens called Punani Riot.
Yes.
And gives them some inspiration to write their protest ballads.
Yes, that's the scene in the Slow Bone Inn, isn't it?
Yes, the Slow Bone Inn, which is the principal inn of a town called Brewer's Droop.
That's the one.
They have excellent, sort of such great whiskey there, don't they?
It's like Brewers is beer mostly. Then
yes, that's the innkeeper that Richard, and he's famous for the whiskey that he brews. He's Whiskey Dick.
That one went right over my head. But yeah, this is where the main villain of the book shows up.
The first one was fake. That was a fake spit take, and the rest was completely real. Oh, that's going to burn.
Okay. A man by the name of Buster Cherry.
Oh, yeah, what a vigilant.
Fanny has it's a bit disgruntled at this point. Very disgruntled
he's heard
Fanny
the
that we have
protest
here.
hymns and sourced them back to Fanny.
He goes in like, you're not getting the respect that you deserve under Samwise.
Now, I was convinced that he was going to be her new mentor, because it sounds like he has a much better handle on the situation.
I mean, he was certainly trying to get her to basically jump ship and move over to his organization.
At the very least, he's got both eyes open.
He tries to convince her to come to him and get a little bit more respect rather than just be underneath Samwise.
Yes, a little bit more reciprocation.
Yeah,
than she's currently getting
from, because Samwise, it's like, he's like, he has the gift that keeps on giving, but it's not really.
Yeah, and certainly now that he's found his walnut, he's really not interested in interrogating the little man in the boat with Fanny any longer. And she's like, no, we can learn so much from the little man in the boat. He said, no, I just want my walnut.
Like you said, for a long time it looks like she's going to jump ship.
Because Buster Cherry very accurately describes Samwise's conduct as uncivilized behavior.
Yes, very much so. It's a good thing this is audio and we can't actually look in the book and see what it's...
Yes, because then if anybody read History Professor, they would be very upset with young Kaki.
It's an interesting scene where he tells her a little bit about his own dealings with crotch crickets that he's had in the past. But she turns him down and she decides to stick with Samwise.
Yeah, at once I thought, incredibly foolish and, noble and loyal, qualities that we really admire in people.
It kind of goes on like this for a while, and it loops back to the beginning.
That's right. Yes, we find ourselves back in Runny Bottom.
Yes.
Which Fanny has not seen in many, many years. And she's surprised that it is still beset by a succubus. Specifically, like the succubus has now taken charge as Queen Hepatitia. And they've been hired once again to do this same job that was the job that he was supposed to do and get on.
He did. I mean, he got discharged for it, like he was improved.
Yes. But he did not, it turns out, defeat the succubus at all. Even the noble sacrifice of Captain Crunch, his previous apprentice. So her disillusionment knows no bound, and yet she still sticks with that loyalty. So when
she's got her eye on the prize, she wants the gift that keeps on giving.
Now that she knows that's the font of all of his power.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the hand of dark magic, but the
dark hand of magic.
That's the one. Yes, the dark hand of magic.
That's the one. I remember. I read the book too. So when he says, Fanny, I know how to deal with these succubi, but it's going to take a feat of pretty significant athleticism, and my old bones, I'm just too old to do this anymore. So we worked this out. My last apprentice and I worked this out last time, and we know what to do. So he takes her up to the bluffs overlooking Runny Bottom, and he says, okay, what you need to do in order to defeat the succubus, you need to dive down here. She goes, oh, well, and then what do I do at the bottom? Well, it'll be obvious. Like, it's mostly about you just got to do some bluff diving. Just dive off the bluff, get good at bluff diving, and then she gears up, and in perfect form, she executes a perfect bluff dive. Like she's been bluff diving all of her life. I mean, honestly, I expected her to just die because it seemed like he was sacrificing her.
It was a very big bluff to dive down from.
But she lands in a giant pile of apprentice bones.
Ooh.
Like it's a boneyard full of skulls of other young people who have served under Samwise Gamgai's
or his predecessors.
Yeah, she talks to the local succubus. She has an audience with Queen Hepatitia, who's impressed with her bluff diving skills, and learns that heroes like Samwise Gamgai have been coming here sacrificing their apprentices
for the longest time.
But Fanny, undaunted, refuses to follow the same fate, and fortunately there are enough apprentice bones here that she can build a comfortable sort of Eiffel Tower out of it. She high-fives Queen Hepatitia.
You always need at least two for an Eiffel Tower.
Yes, exactly. Well, two on either side and one in the middle.
Three. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Until she's able to ring the devil's doorbell.
No.
And Queen Hepatitia decides to, in gratitude, elevate her back up the bluff and vacate the premises. But even as Fanny returns to Runny Bottom with the grand news that Queen Hepatitia has fled the land, she sees already that Samwise is taking credit for the accomplishment.
Yes, he has done once again, taken the accomplishments of his apprentice and claimed them for himself, and pronounced that Runny Bottom is now once again free of the succubus's influences.
Thanks to him, Samwise Gamgai.
Yes.
Now, we found out that this whole process of the bluff diving and the negotiation with Queen Hepatitia actually took a while. So by the time that she returns, a lot of the town is pregnant once again, and the dark hand of magic has manifested itself throughout the town.
I mean, the gift that keeps on giving has been definitely spread over to the neighbouring towns of Sodom and Gonorrhea.
Yes.
And even the castle overlooking the valley, which is captained by Commander Chodweiser, has fallen to the plague.
He is the Dean of Unmanned Parenthood.
That's the one. And yes, the torch has to be passed through the town. Everything has to be razed to the ground, I suppose. And
that's where we find ourselves come full circle once again. This hero to whom she's apprenticed and whose power she is now about to receive, who has returned fertility to her town, and whom she saved from the poisonous beavers, and who took the credit for her various accomplishments.
Now going to finally pass the power on that she's been craving all this time. Yeah, she's standing there with her sword in hand, and now that we finally realised the importance of the scene at the beginning, where she's just starting to think, okay, here comes the power, here comes the power, have I got it, what am I going to do? I'm going to kick him in the back, I'm going to kiss him, or I'm going to stab him.
Yes, she is still holding a torch, even while the rest is being torched out, she's still playing fuck, marry, kill in her mind.
Yeah, and she's like...
Is there a fantasy version of fuck, marry, kill that we can do?
Bet, wed, behead.
That's the one. I am lucky that I didn't have a little libation there to have another one of my fantastic first faked and then totally genuine spit take choke sessions.
And that's where the book kind of like leaves. We leave the scene where she's trying to make up her mind.
I thought it was such a book tease.
I love it. Like it's fantastic.
On the one hand, I hope there'll be a sequel that I get to find out because I need the release from this curiosity. But on the other hand, like a book tease that can be kind of fun. That can be
because the author really makes a good point for each of the options.
Oh, yes. And that's why sometime in the future, perhaps we'll get around to the sequel, also written by Barbara Hambly, Bed, Dead, Redemption.
Ooh, yes.
Those are the three options.
That sounds like a fantastic book. I would love to read that one.
So I thought it was a pretty good book. I particularly enjoyed the mythology, the gift that keeps on giving, the staff of power, and even the poisonous beavers. Like a rollicking fantasy adventure story is only as good as the rewards and the dangers that the heroes have to face.
But I also love the world building, the history professor and the lore around Runny Bottom. Well, there was a little twist in there with the bones of the apprentices that we had never. I never saw that coming. It's like that completely blindsided me, that one.
Yeah. Boating usually does.
Well, it does keep one's mind distracted, I suppose.
I wonder if there was any premonition to that in the Slow Bone Inn, if we read it again, if we ever end up reading it again.
I rarely reread books. I don't know about you.
So how are we going to rate this book?
Oh, that's going to be a difficult one.
This is a rare one where there's absolutely nothing.
Something with antibiotics?
Yeah.
Would you consider this book more probiotic or more antibiotic?
That still doesn't help us.
I'm definitely leaning towards the probiotic kind.
Okay, yeah, so it's
on a scale of 1 to 10 from antibiotic to probiotic, where would you rate it?
Yeah. Where would I rate it? I mean, give it a solid 8.5 out of 10. A generous 8.5, which in reality, when you measure, is probably only 5. But we say 8.5 to 9 on a good day.
It depends on whether you're not using the American system or the rest of the world.
And whether you measure along the top or whether you measure for the base.
There are SI established rules for this kind of measurement.
Really?
I'm pretty sure there is.
Really?
Well,
in the Système International, in the actual sort of scientific
horizontal from along the top, basically. Yeah.
Oh, horizontal. So you actually have to dip it down. Yeah.
And
okay.
then you kind of like do, and then like push the ruler against the base, and then right to the straight line to the tip. So you don't follow any curves.
Right. Well, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's. But
I mean, that's a good way to be objective, and I think in this case it would probably
I'm not sure
be
how
around.
we got there from probiotic antibiotic, but
I don't
it's.
know.
I think I agree. It's like it'll definitely get a good 8.5 out of me.
We should all be so lucky. And for the readers at home, if the review of this book left you with a solid 8.5, that seems like a lot to handle. Oh God, I'm going faint just thinking of. Oh, the sort of blood's draining out of my brain.
Well, that's because it's going to the other head.
That's right. And if you enjoyed this, you can look down at your podcasting device. You can, oh God, I'm going to say it. You can finger the little star on your.
Or even 4 or 5 of them.
That's right. That's right. Yes, 4 or 5 fingers, and explore your sacred walnut gut.
Yeah, I think we definitely earned our X-ray or E-rating.
I'm going to listen back and see if we ever swore, because this, in fact, may be our second non-explicit episode. But yes, if you enjoyed it, please do leave a rating, or especially just get in touch with us at Cover My Ass Cast at Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. You can also send us any baffling books if you think that we should review but not read them and judge them only by the cover. You can get in touch with it at covermyasscast@gmail.com. But in the meantime, what do we have in store for our readers next week?
Next week's book is by Melissa Bank, The Worst Thing a Suburban Girl Could Imagine.
Oh, that about covers it. Thank you for joining us at Cover My Ass, where baffling books are reviewed but not read by yours truly. My name is Kaki.
And I'm Kay, and remember, we only judge a book by its cover.
Wow.
I think covering things more would have solved a lot of problems in this book.
A lot of mysteries were between the covers still.
I mean, at least we wrapped it up, although nobody in the book did.
No, I noticed that exactly. I had trouble figuring out the ending of this book because some of the pages were stuck together.
Well, maybe there was a little accident with the glue in the bookbinding facilities.